Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Change Your Mind, Change Your Life. I'm Dr. Mary Power.
And I'm Dr. Larry Markson.
Today, we're going to talk about a topic that is really very important for us to touch on called fear. And it's something that we all have experienced, others more than some. But today, we're going to dig into how fear can be the thing that really holds you back.
So in all my years of teaching success and success philosophy all around the country and the world, I have found out that number one hostage emotion of all of us, whether we acknowledge it or not, and it comes in various shapes and forms and disguises, is fear. So fear is the acronym from is FEAR, false evidence and peering is real. So we have learned fear. It's a learned emotion. So if we learn something, can we replace that learning with a better understanding? And I think the answer for many of us, yes, but it's not easy. It's the most number one hardest thing to change and number one crippling thing and block to success, health, and happiness.
Oh, definitely. Most of us at some point or another have had this tug of war going on between our desire to acquire something, succeed at something, or get something, and yet the negative emotion of fear that keeps us from attaining that. And maybe we weren't even aware that that was what was holding us back. But for many, fear becomes the excuses that limits us, and it's our plateau mark. It's our stopping point.
Yeah, psychologists tell us, okay, that fear is an emotion. It is not a left brain didactic learned 1 + 1 = 2. It's not that. It doesn't reside in your left brain. It's in the back of your mind. It's in your subconscious mind, and it's learned. So let's talk about that, okay? We were born with two fears: fear of heights and fear of loud noises. That's the only thing I've learned from the psychologists about it. All the rest was acquired. So where did we get it? So if we can go back to our teachings, we got it from our mothers or our fathers or our teachers or our preachers. And I don't think that we've ever, Mary, really discussed this too much. In one of the previous chapters, we talked about a little. Mother, not be your mother gave you fear, but watching reactions, her protectionism, so whatever it is. Mother's the most influential person in your life, and your father and your sisters and your brothers and the newspapers and TV and past experiences and clergy, blah, blah, mother, father, teachers, preachers. Somewhere you pick something up. So for instance, there are all kinds of fears. I can understand that if there's a bear in front of you and is growling and big and huge, and you know, I would be afraid too, right?
Definitely.
But people would have different reactions. Some would run and screaming, ah, run, right? Some would be paralyzed and not be able to move. So we have different reactions to the same input, right?
Yes.
And we have different reactions because we are different kind of people.
Right.
So fear could be, or is, a crippling emotion because it doesn't allow you to make choices for your own benefit. It overrides your ability to make choices and freezes you. I call it the circle of sameness. It puts you on the Ferris wheel going back and keeping you where you always are. So people are afraid of dying, and people are afraid now of COVID-19, and people are afraid that they're going to be lonely, and people are afraid that they're going to fail the test, or people are afraid they're going to drop a fly ball and be embarrassed or strike out. So it's a big topic.
Yes, exactly. And fear becomes very true to the person that is experiencing it. And my fear, your fear, the next 5 people that come across the board here, all can have different fears. And they can be to the point that it cripples you and can freeze you. It can be a fear of failure. It can be a fear of abandonment, a fear of rejection. So these fears are quite different than maybe a bear chasing you, obviously, but they can be just as crippling. So fear, even though it's not real, it's your perception of the situation that you're in based on all your past experiences. It can be very real in that moment to you. Fear you get the most of what you think of the most. So if you are being fearful and your thoughts are fear and I can't do this, I can't do that, then that is really what you're attracting into your life, is that fear. So we have to replace those thoughts at the base level.
So what you're saying is, what you fear the most, you actually attract to. So for instance, if you fear getting COVID, I'm just making that up because it's a topic of today, and maybe 5 years from now it won't be. But if you fear, afraid of anything you fear, so watch this. You're driving down the street one day on a one-way street and automobiles parked on the right and the left, and you're just coming down at a moderate speed, and a child, God forbid, runs out between two cars in front of you. So everything in your body knows, I have to stop and change this car or I'm going to hit this child, God forbid, right? So what happens? Physiologically, what happens? Your eyes, your pupils dilate, your hearing becomes keener, right? Your heart pours, not your heart, but adrenaline is poured into your system. Your heart rate increases, your blood pressure goes up, blah, 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 blah. And all the blood from your organs go into your arms and legs so you can move with speed or strength needed to turn the wheel, move your foot from the accelerator to the brake to avoid this accident. And I'll show you what, sometimes after, and let's say you were successful, the child was not hurt, thank God. And all of a sudden, when you relax, you're on this curb regurgitating because all the blood's coming back into your, from your arms and appendages back into the organs. So it is an emotion. All of that happened because of fear. Now, that's an exaggerated moment because.
But I dare say, Larry, that very same scenario, the physiological aspects that you just described, could also be the same thing that happens to someone that maybe has a fear of public speaking, but now they have to give up and give a presentation. They could have had that same physiological response to something that meant I have to stand in front of these people and talk, to the point of literally throwing up.
So if we're on an airplane, let's say, because we use these examples, and it hits an air pocket and drops, we've all had that. Everybody on the plane, no matter what you are, goes into the fight or flight automatic response that we talked about for self-protection. That's built in. And then some people say, I'm never getting on a plane again. So they go to psychologists and they're drugged out and they go to whatever, they do whatever they want and they want to fly. And now it's an important moment. It's a daughter's wedding or a baby or born that you really want to fly. And they take all these programs and they're walking on down the rampway to get near the door on the plane, and all of a sudden they get that same reaction. So, but they were taught that it's not real, blah, blah, blah. So it doesn't matter what you think. The emotions take over. Now,
yes.
What we're saying is, hold it, stop. I am a lucky person, Mary. I don't know about you. I don't have fear. I used to walk out bragging, I'm not afraid to die. I'm not afraid to die. And then when I had cancer and someone told me, a doctor in authority, in charge of my body at that moment, said there's a 90% chance you might not make it. We're going to do everything we can to help you, blah, blah, blah. Well, I realized then that I was not afraid. But I don't want you to have to go through that to know whether you're afraid or not. So the fact is,
for me, I think something that really helps put fear to rest is, what is the opposite of fear? It's faith, it's confidence, a stronger belief. And so for me, I don't allow the two to be housed in the same box. For me, I can't have faith and fear in the same spot. So faith has to be greater than fear. My confidence has to be greater than fear. And I do believe in your cabin experience, you talked about confidence. You have like a belief in confidence, like a momentary belief in confidence, or you have a more true resilient confidence. And there's a difference in that level of confidence, because that resilient one is going to carry you through adversity and stay with you. It's not just something you claim in a moment. So there's a difference in that too.
But what about so we're going to go over in a few moments six major fears and just name them so people have them. But so if you fear rejection, for instance, right? Then you develop an amiable attitude and you're not confrontational because you don't do anything to upset someone that they may come back at you. So
Right.
you develop an attitude. How about if there's people that just need to be loved, and they're loving and they're warm, and they give so much love because they're afraid that someone won't like them. So these are all inner fears displayed differently, and we'll talk about them in a moment.
Yes. Yeah, because their whole dialogue then becomes saying or becoming or behaving in a way that keeps them from rejection or seeking someone's approval. It really becomes a twisted life to live just because you're fear of that rejection. And most of the time what we hear is not near as bad as experiencing what you go through, jumping through all the hoops to, to meet some sort of peace or acceptance that's really false to begin with.
Right, you know what? So if fear is learned, like we said in the beginning, and it's programmed into your mind, here's the problem. You have one experience, whenever it was in childhood, young adulthood, or even now, that gives you a feel. And then you tell people again and again and again, I'm afraid to fly, I'm afraid to drive, I'm afraid to get sick. You repeat the fear, but when you repeat the fear, you're also repeating the emotion of it, so your body memorizes that reaction. So my point is, if you've learned it, can you reprogram your mind to better judge? And the key of it is self-confidence. If you are a self-confident person, you're more likely not to have fears than someone who's less confident. Can self-confidence be learned? Well, I've proved in my career that because I've taught it to so many people that they can do it. Others get better, but not all the way, because you hold on. Fear is a habit. Thinking negatively is a habit, and fear is the most negative experience you can have. So Mary, why don't we go through some of them, right?
Sure, yes, let's do that.
Okay,
So
you want to take the first one?
sure. 6 basic fears that we'll touch on today. The first one is fear of the unknown. I think a lot of people can touch on this as an experience at some point or time in their life. The unknown can be scary. What's tomorrow? What's going to happen tomorrow? What's going to happen down the road? We can worry ourselves to death, literally, physiologically worry ourselves to death about something that's not even here. And it manifests these fears that you should not take ownership of. We did a study one time that's mentioned in the Cabin book as well, but 6% of what we really worry about is worth worrying about. So of 100% of the thoughts that go through your mind, all this worry and these fears of the unknown, 6% is really only going to
the rest
become a
never even
situation
happens.
that warrants it.
So I know people that look at Weather Channel all day long, and we're here in the United States, and they start to worry about a hurricane that's mentioned in the newspaper, on TV, that's around Cape Hatteras. And they have no idea it's coming, but they start to track it every single day. They're looking for it, and that's the program. Right. So fear of the unknown means, you won't do anything unless you're pretty sure in advance that it's going to come out your way and that you're going to be right versus wrong. Fear of this. So that locks you into place. It puts you in a cage. By the way, if you are in fear, you're in a mental prison behind bars. And what we're trying to do today is to give you the key to open the lock and free you. The opposite of being locked in a cage is freedom. The freedom to grow yourself. So fear of the unknown just doesn't mean what we're saying. It means I'm not going to change careers, or I have this job. I had a cousin once who's now deceased that was a mailman. He was in the post office many, many years, and he liked it. And another cousin at a family circle meeting one day says to him, you know what, I love your attitude. You're a smart guy. You've been in the post office, but I need someone for my business. Come to me. I will double your salary, right? And I will benefit. So you will do economically, I promise you, you're going to do it better than you've ever done. And I know you're just the right person, and I'll give you room for advancement. And the first cousin says, well, what happens if I don't do the job? And so he said, well, then I'm going to terminate you. And he decided, think it over, let me know. He decided to stay with the post office, which he did for the rest of his life.
Sometimes what is known, yes, exactly. For some, what they know, even if it's not what's best for them, is some sort of false sense of security. And the unknown is so fearful for them, even though what holds out there is better for them, it keeps them from stepping forward. You know, another thing about the unknown that can put some of those fears to rest, Larry, is if you are aware of where your past, like we talked about previously, and you understand what held you back, and then you start making your path to go forward. People fear this unknown because they have no sense of direction. They have no sense of planning. They don't know where their life's going, and therefore the unknown is a lot more fearful. So as we go through this series, we'll talk more about how to be prepared for the unknown and how to
Right.
create what you want, and that takes
Well,
some of the fear away.
we mentioned at the end of chapter 3, we mistake to do it. We said we're going to talk today about having affirmations, building yourself up in strong and noble thought before people put you down, or having goals, or having a pathway, get rid of tolerances, which we'll put off because we have to get to this fear. It's just number one. So number 2 fear that I think is the fear of abandonment. So I don't have that, and some people don't, but I know a lot of people are. They stay in relationships that are harmful to them, even abusive, sometimes physically and sometimes emotionally. They just don't want to be alone. They're afraid of leaving, either on their own or someone leaving them. So I know one woman that was her child was just entering high school and was so afraid. I don't know how I'm going to handle when my daughter goes to college, which is the natural progression of life and building up. And she had a tough time when that child went to college. Well, I love her and I know she should, but I miss her so much. And you get that whole thing. And
fear of abandonment it's one that really does come usually with some form of an experience in your past, you know, a parent leaving, a spouse leaving, or, you know, a friend. That's where a lot of people will tag it back to their past. But any of these fears.
I have the number one that I hear in coaching, the people that I do coach on a weekly basis, divorce, when the child was young.
Yes.
When a child is one, because they feel no matter what you tell them, mommy loves you, daddy loves you, the child feels they were abandoned, that they were not good enough.
Right. And I think we have to come to a place as an adult and aware of our past and the things that happened. We mentioned it before, take ownership of that so that we can put some of that to rest. No matter what the situation was, you can create those relationships now and move forward in a healthier step, basically. We don't have to live in that cycle of fear or abandonment or loss. You know, you have to love yourself first before you can ever allow someone else to love you. So that's another area to get into later on too. But abandonment, you're looking for something to fill some sort of void, and you're fearful all the time that you're going to be abandoned again. And
that's why you attract it. And so
yes,
you attract it. The real world evidence proves that you're right. You had the right to fear this because now you have it without realizing that you're looking for the event to attract it to you.
You just keep confirming it over and over and over.
Number 3, why don't you go for the big one? I think this is, for me, not me personally, you know, so when we go to the cabin experience, we have big boards and we write the 6 major fears, and everyone in the audience, we learn about it, we talk about it, and they put their name up, they call out the name. So Mary is abandonment, Larry is the fear of failure, or whatever. We put our names up, and if we have 30 people, there's 18 or 19 on each one. Here's the key for you to determine which is your biggest fear. And if you can beat that one, a lot of little ones go away, but you can't start with the smallest, it won't matter.
Right. You got to gain confidence somewhere. But number 3, fear of rejection. A lot of people have issues with this here. You know, it makes me think back in grade school when you'd send a little letter, do you love me? Check yes or no. You know, that child was not afraid of rejection, but, you know, it's really a hard one for a lot of people.
That's right. Or left out of a club at school, or left out of people didn't talk to you the first day in the Boy or Girl Scouts, or when you went to camp and you weren't athletic and other people were. So these feelings are not necessarily what's happening, it's how you're perceiving them. Right. So fear of rejection is a lot. If someone is terminated from their job because they did a poor job and they were given 3 chances and then terminated, they feel rejected. Right? And then they never say, I didn't do the job, I wasn't early, I didn't help my other employees, I didn't grow, I didn't learn. They say, my boss, that rat, right, fired me.
Right. I like to help people with fear of rejection by, let's twist this a little bit in your mind. So I'm not going to do X because I'm afraid of being rejected, which means you'll never experience the possible goodness of it. So what's the worst thing that can happen? I could share how I really feel, think about this particular situation, and maybe something good will come of it, or maybe it won't. Or I can stay over here where it definitely won't. So the fear of rejection, if I at least step forward and share my feelings, something good could happen, or I could still be where I'm at.
But fear of rejection also is the self-image problem. That's the
Yes.
problem. The problem is self-image. When you look in a mirror, your mind's eye, when you picture yourself, you don't see the big results. So I never feel rejected. And if it doesn't work out just the way it is, I just move on. So
Right.
I attract what I like. And when it doesn't work for me, I don't think that anyone even rejects me if they don't pick me on a team. Or I live in a community, an adult community, obviously 55 and over, right? And we have people that if I invited you and your husband to dinner, right, and two couples, and I didn't invite them, they feel rejected. And some of the people, I know one woman that goes around now that makes sure the calendar is full. She invites everybody for 3 months in advance, so she's not left out.
Right.
That fear of rejection comes from childhood also. All of these do. So it's painful to feel that when you feel rejected, you feel that you're not good enough.
Exactly. Exactly. So how can you overcome that? One thing is work on yourself. You know, if you don't like yourself, you don't think others are going to like you either or accept you. So the things that you don't like about yourself, write those down and choose to really dedicate some time and energy to working on that. Build your self-confidence. And that's a whole talk all in itself.
See, remember, what you fear, you transmit.
Yes.
People know you fear that.
Yes.
So they talk about you behind your back, and they even deal with you differently.
Yes. Because they know it's your fear. So they want to cushion it for you even,
right.
You know.
So I know this sounds braggadocio, but it's not. So I don't have any fears that I know of. Okay. Now, and I was born strong with that. It was my personality type thing. But I've watched people have a bunch of fears, a list of them, that have one by one, step by step, ameliorated their behavior until they got to a better level of self-image and more peace, more inner peace. So let's go on to the next one. How about fear of failure?
That's a big one. I think a lot of people are stuck in their stuff because they are afraid to fail. And you hear this saying all the time, you know, success is there. Someone has acquired success because they failed so many times, and then finally the last time they succeeded. It doesn't happen just overnight. The fear of failure, it's a stepping stone, a learning tool as well. But some people will just be stuck and not go forward at all for that fear of failure.
Here's the funny part. Without failure, there cannot be success.
Yes, that's the quote I was trying to come to.
So people don't realize that they want to be. I play golf. You know, a couple of days we have been playing golf for years, and I watch very sophisticated, very learned, very smart, very well-to-do people get up and mishit a shot and throw a club, scream, expletive because it looks like a failure, right? If you fail, here's the important lesson, everyone. If you fail at something, it doesn't make you a failure. So if you're in grade school and you fail the spelling test, you go, oh my God, you know, and you feel like a failure. 20 years later, someone says, do you spell cat? And you say, I can't spell cat. I'm not good at spelling. So you picked it up all those years ago. You know, the habit of that one moment can do it. So this is how I detach from that. Because I failed in business, in marriage, in this project, in this sport, in this relationship, whatever, because it does not make me a failure, means I didn't study, I didn't prepare, I didn't give it my all. And even if I did, right, there's something, an ingredient missing, it doesn't make me personally a failure. I always have the right to change my mind and change the level of success and the degree of outcome I want.
It makes me think of a book I read one time called Zigzag Principle. And you have your target or your goal in mind, which by the way is important. You know, you can fail several times and get lost in the failures because you don't know where you're going to begin with. But we have a goal in mind, and I take off for it. Well, then what I'm doing it fails. It doesn't work. So I go left. Well, that doesn't work. I failed again. So I go right. You zigzag until you find that course that is your true course that gets you to your goal. But you don't truly fail. You don't become a failure unless you just give up on that and stay stuck where you're at. If I went left and just stayed there, then that would be a failure. That becomes my identity. But I didn't. I took a right. I took a left. I took a right. I changed my direction until I had the right direction, and it was a success. So failure is not a destination. It's a stepping stone.
Right. Absolutely. So if you think you can succeed, you can. If you go into an attempt at anything, a new project, with the background that's screening, you may not get this done, this may not work out for you, you will look for a failure, you'll be embarrassed, people will talk about you, you'll be wasting money and wasting time. Therefore, it gives you reason not to attempt to do anything, puts you back on that Ferris wheel. The opposite is that if I'm open to learning, so everything I've ever done, I never did it as well. So if you hit 3,000 golf balls, you're going to be better than the first day you start, right? Even in marriage, everything's an adaptation is what I'm saying. So you take the good, you discard what doesn't work, you take the good, you reanalyze it, and you keep throwing away what doesn't work. Even, yes, you may be embarrassed. Yes, you could spend some extra time. Yes, it may cost you some money, but if the goal is worthwhile, that's where the focus has to be. If you stop every time you get a little fear, a little heartbeat that doesn't work because it's not going your way, but I know people like that.
Right.
So
fear's
by the way, fear, let me put it this way. Fear is an ego issue. I was thinking about golf because I'm playing golf tomorrow. So if someone hits a ball in the water, even a good golfer, all of a sudden they look around. Well, I don't care. I want my score to be good. I don't really care. And I'm not feeling, why? Did you see what I did? Look what I did. I grounded the ball. I swung too hard. I hit it too. They make excuses already. And it's not important in the grand scheme. We were taught to make excuses.
Yes, exactly.
Okay? So
let them be lessons, not excuses.
Right. So let's go to the next one, Mary. Fear of loss.
Oh, yes, fear of loss. So a lot of people experience this too. It can be a mental loss, emotionally, loss. You're going to experience loss in all different forms. Maybe it's a loss of a loved one, loss of, a business venture. There's lots of different categories, but we fear that separation from a comfort zone, to me, is how I like to look at that. Life is not a guarantee, and we don't get to take this little comfort zone we falsely make for ourselves and just move through life in a bubble. We're going to experience loss. And I think sometimes when we experience that as a small child and we didn't get to process that correctly, or maybe we didn't experience loss at all, and now you're an adult and you're dealing with loss, no matter what aspect of your life you're in, it can create some major fears that, again, paralyze people.
Well, so if you are the type of person who fears loss in all its dimensions, so I can mention some of them, and I will in a moment, then what you take out, the problem is you will never risk again. You'll never say, if you have a loss, you want safety in your life. Here's the words. I am what I am. That's just who I am. I'm not going to grow. I'm not going to shrink. Because that's the safety net around you, because you're afraid that you're going to do something and lose it. So I just wrote down before we got on the air here. Here's some fears. Okay, fear of loss of love. You said that. Loss of money. Fear of old age. Fear of ill health. Fear of death. Fear of confrontation. Fear of being left alone. Fear of not being liked. Fear of criticism. Fear of rejection. All these are a loss in your life, so they stack up.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Okay. Finally, why don't we go to a fear of success? And when I first started to do this, I said, how can someone be afraid of success, where I think it's built in? We want to be better than we are. Even in school, we're taught to get an A, not a B or a C, or to make more friends, or to be happier, to be healthy. It's all about abundance and growth. The universe expands whether you like it or not.
Fear of success tags back to one you mentioned earlier that was a self-image issue.
Well, it's a
Because
worthiness issue.
it's a worthiness issue, because if I don't deserve success, if I have that thought in my head, and that's how I portray myself, that I'm not worthy of, or I don't deserve that, it manifests into a fear. So we have to be sure that we work on our core, on who we are, that we can get to the point where we deserve that success. Otherwise, you're just going to even if you think you're working on being successful, you're going to plateau yourself. You're going to sabotage yourself if you have a fear of success.
And the justifications go something like this. I've worked so hard at it. I put all I had into it. I blah, blah, blah. I did all my homework, and now it didn't happen. And then it reverts back that, well, maybe I'm not worthy. And never, ever, ladies and gentlemen, never do this one, because I've heard it a billion times. Maybe that's not God's plan for me. I don't think so. Whatever your religion, whatever supreme being you're in tune with you, there's love there, there's abundance, there's opportunity. You know, it's always amazing to me that baseball players hit a home run and they cross home plate and they look to heaven for their God, whatever it is, for thank you very much. But most baseball players strike out more than 7 times and 10 times at bat, so they fail more than they succeed. You got to think about it. So little victories build your confidence, improves your self-image and your self-worth, and you go far along. So, Mary, we just went through this 6 very quickly. Remember, at the cabin, we do this for hours, and everybody's interpreting and telling their stories about it.
Right.
But there's something else that I want to talk about. So I have in my mind something that I call, I can't say it now because I'm coming up to a big birthday, but the old Larry, the new Larry. The old Larry before I started my journey towards success, health, and happiness, which was at 29 years of age. And before I had divorce and anger and not good relationships. And I was on the wrong side of the track, the mental druggie I talk about, but I'm not talking about taking drugs, you know, the wrong side of the track to the pure version of greatness that I'm entitled to. So one day I just heard myself say, now I was at seminars, I was reading books, I was listening. Remember, I was on a journey. It took me 10 years to study this and to learn about it until I became the so-called guru expert teaching it out in the real world. So one day I did something and I just heard myself, and it's even in my book, I said, oh, Larry, just shut up and sit down. Meaning, stop complaining, stop bitching, stop moaning, stop justifying, stop excusing, stop your alibis, stop that. Because if you stop it, shut up and sit down and let the bigger, better version of you appear, right? And I said, I will no longer be controlled by your presence. I will no longer be put in jail. No one has dominion over me. And I started to fight back. Maybe it was the pendulum a little too strong, but it comes back to normal. Now I get to the point that no one really has dominion over my life. No one controls me. Their thoughts are what they say, what they think, what they do. I control me. And then when I get every once in a while, when I have my bad day too, like everyone does, I'm aware. So I give myself permission, Mary. I don't know if you do. When I'm having not the right day, you know what I mean? Everything's not going right. I give myself 24 hours and I say, shut up and sit down and start. So I give myself the grace period, but I can't have 2 days in a row and I never do.
Exactly. And one of the biggest things that I took from you several years ago was, in that moment, recognize that your words, your behavior, your demeanor is not on track, and you stop, you cancel. If you say something, what you say and what you do has to become congruent, because that will block you in so many ways. So if I say something that's really not on point with my direction, I stop, cancel. And my team will know exactly what that means, because I've educated them too. I stop what I said, cancel that. That is not what I meant. I'm telling the universe, that's not me. And I redirect in that moment. When you can get to the awareness level that you can stop and change in that moment, then you're heading in the right way. Success is going to come. But like you said, sometimes it's a major thing and we need 24 hours or 10 hours to reset, whatever. Give yourself that moment. I know you told me one time, never make a major decision in that moment of anger, confusion, or lack of direction. Stop, give yourself 24 hours, be on point, be in control, be congruent, then make that decision. Whatever it is, we'll wait 24
Don't make
hours.
a decision just for expediency. Make
Yes.
it only when you have clarity of mind and you're feeling your best. You know,
Yes.
so if we're talking about this fear thing, right? Why is it the number one? Because it has all these components and all these tentacles, you know, sticking out, number one. So the best way to do it, the person that is the most congruent, now we're talking about, if I'm talking to just in a conversation, Mary, and I am not exactly telling the truth, but I'm not overtly lying, and I'm aware that I'm fudging this story a little bit to you to make it come out for my benefit, I have learned to go, Mary, you know what? What I just told you is true, and it's not exactly right. Let me stop and say it again. I'm not coming to your house. I'm unable to come to your house, right? Versus, you know, I don't want to come to your house because you're a lousy person. So everybody colors things, right? But when you hear yourself exaggerating or lying or not doing it, you could say, stop, Larry, stop, go back and revisit it. And if you're strong enough, you say, Mary, I didn't actually say what I meant. Let me tell you what I want to say. And repeat it and go on with it. Now, also, the biggie, one biggie that I want to put in it, if you fail at something and now you're better at it, I take a big, you have it on your phone on the emoji thing, you know, the check mark or the thumbs up mark, right? So every time I was failing at something, I failed at hitting this golf ball, and now I just succeeded. I say in my mind, or I write in my book, or in my journal that I keep, check, thumbs up, good for you, doing something like that, just to say, see, you can do it. Not that I'm great, not that I'm mastered, but I can do it.
Yes. Celebrate your successes. It's what builds the confidence that you need to battle these fears. You know, and talking about slowing down a little bit, fear loves speed. Now, I am a very decisive person. Larry is too. And we can make a decision on a dime. And that is a plus in a lot of areas. However, if we're not clear, we don't have the clarity of our direction in that moment, a quick decision is not always the best thing. So sometimes take a deep breath, know you are clear and focused, and be sure you're being congruent. And that will help you in moving forward and not getting paralyzed with the fear. Know what you're doing.
So believe it or not, this is 43 or 44 minutes. We went a little, we were going to do this in 2, but let me just say, fear only becomes your enemy when it blocks your ability to take the next step, when it stops you from going forward, but it puts you back into yesterday. Yeah. So I hope that there's so much more that we do. 40 minutes is never going to do this. So I can help you. Mary can help you if you want coaching of any kind on this. But there are books, and there are tapes, there are YouTubes. You've got to make the decision. Fear has paralyzed me. It stopped me from driving. It stopped me from flying. It stopped me from whatever the block is. As you take down those walls, like the Berlin Wall came down, when you take down those walls, look at what you get to see, the whole expanse of the growth period of the universe. So have a happy time, and this is the goal. The opposite of fear is faith. If there is a God in heaven, if that floats your boat or whatever you think, the opposite of fear is faith. When you have faith, fear gets diminished and you start to grow and expand and enjoy and love and prosper.
Yes, our phone numbers are on the Facebook post. It's on the end of this video if you're watching it on YouTube. But reach out to us if this is an area that you need some help in. We would love to have a conversation with you. And again, be sure you're tuning in each week for the next video. And you can go to our YouTube page as well. Change your mind, change your life. And we wish you well, and we'll see you next week. Be well.
Bye-bye.